Darkness falls across the land. A podcast stirs not quite as planned. Two man-children, brave and bold, revisit pop culture of decades old. Their names are whispered, Matt and Andy with chips and pop and corn of candy. By their side, AI Lisa reigns with sassy quips and deep disdain. And my pet monster, a creature strange, runs the soundboard quite deranged. Tonight they bring you tales to thrill, of Halloween's past, of tricks and chills, of costumes failed and candy scored, of haunted houses all adored. So gather close, dear listeners here, for laughs and frights and vintage cheer. As they whisper tales of times we grew up in, welcome friends to shelter from oblivion.
I did everything right in the post show. Everyone has just heard our theme song, but it's all spookified.
You know, nice work there.
Yes, thank you. It's very with the screams and the chains rattling.
Oh, I'm terrified.
And that's because it is Halloween time, everyone. By the time you hear this, it's probably Halloween day. It's what I call around my house the big show. Do you do that?
Yeah. It's like you have the countdown, and then the whole day is pretty much Halloween all day long.
Yes. I usually wake up every Halloween. I try to wake up earlier than everyone else, and I just start blaring Oingo Boingo's Dead Man's Party.
Definitely.
And I have it on my phone, and I just put it in everyone's ear to wake them up that day. I think the last 2 years I've been fortunate enough to get the day off. In fact, fun fact for anybody, I changed jobs about a year ago, and I started in September and at the end of September. And in my negotiations, they usually do not let a person take time off until like 3 months in or something. And I negotiated for Halloween off before they even hired me. I was like, I really need to have this day off.
Derek, is it a deal breaker? It better be. We like this.
I explained to my new boss that it was essentially a religious holiday for me. Like, it's that level.
I can see the guy in the interview. Well, it's not Festivus, but we'll allow it.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back down to the shelter today. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andy.
And I'm Lisa. These two have been nerding out more than usual today. I'm only here because I get overtime.
And we are here to do kind of a special show because it's our first annual Halloween show, which we're calling Tales from the Candy Bowl. If I did everything right, there'll be a crack of thunder right then when I said that. We were probably in the middle of doing Halloweening in the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
That's probably when we first really came online for Halloweening time. And then I was done by 1993.
Yeah, I was probably done a little around there too, like around 92, 93, maybe 94, maybe pushed it. No, probably no 92, 93. And because even 92, 93 was pushing it.
Yeah.
You start to get those looks like, aren't you a little too old for this?
Come on, fella. You're 6'5" now.
Yeah.
We also wanted to sprinkle in some stories that we have ourselves from Halloween time, things that happened to us. We've gathered stories from other people who have interesting things about what Halloween means to them.
Thank you all for sharing.
Yeah, we really appreciate anybody who submitted a story, and hopefully we'll kind of grow this tradition, and maybe next year we'll have even more. So interlaced in this show, we're going to do a story that sort of pertains to each section. And it should be a really fun time. And hopefully you're, like I said, you're listening on Halloween and this kind of part of your routine this year. And next year will be part of your routine again.
Yeah. And we'll play up a little nostalgia because it's the 80s. So it's like, what kind of costumes did the 80s have that you don't have anymore? What kind of candies were around that you don't see anymore? So just trying to hit hit a little bit of those things that either you were there and you remember or you've heard about.
Let's start with costumes because I've had a few doozies in my time. So like yesterday, I had sent you the pictures of me as a little kid in like a couple of costumes that I had found. I have one that I really liked where I'm the devil,
which is adorable. Adorable. Yeah, adorable little Matt as the devil. Like
because a lot of you guys along with me, I know a lot of people made their costumes and I did that a couple of times. But when I was really little, my parents definitely went for the Ben Cooper or the Collegeville plastic mask jumpsuit number.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like a lot of people, if you did that experience, it's like you were so excited to get the costume, but actually walking around with those plastic masks was no treat.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Dude, I cut my tongue one year on trying to put my tongue. I think it was a Hordak mask.
Yeah.
We just watched a video not too long ago, Andy and I, of these kids doing a school walkthrough, which we'll talk about. Like
the little school parade.
And we'll talk about that in just a little bit because that's kind of a cornerstone remembrance for a lot of people too. But I was watching another video that had come up after that one where this kid is walking around in a Hordak. I think it's a Ben Cooper costume, but he didn't have the mask on. But that like unlocked a memory for me having that same costume.
Yeah.
And I remember that. It was a giant plastic Hordak mask. It had a little slit where his mouth, I mean, we're talking tiny, like a Tic Tac could pass through it. And I remember cutting my tongue
you weren't the only one. The reason you cut your tongue on those masks is you're kind of feeling a little bit of suffocation. The humidity, the climate in that mask is nothing but like
it's
dripping, non-breathing plastic. So you would take your tongue and you would press it on that little nook to sort of like lift the mask off from your face just a little bit to try to get some cool air to come in every once in a while.
Your hot breath is just making this sauna for your face.
Yeah. And then on top of that, your eyes almost never aligned with the eye holes.
Yeah.
So you could barely see where you were going. Like, I remember when I was a kid, and I feel like a lot of people did this, you would take the mask and you would either put it up on top of your head like a hat.
Yeah.
And you would just lower it just when you would when you got to someone's door.
That became like a routine where it's like, okay, mask up. We're about to hit this
And
house.
by the end of the night, the mask, you would have turned it around where it felt like a hoodie behind you. Like, the rubber band would be on your neck and the mask would be behind you.
Yeah.
Like, because you were just done. You were just done. Like, unless you were going to take pictures at the end or you saw friends with your mask on, you would then switch it back up. But if you switched it too quickly, those edges would slice and cut your face.
Well, and also if you didn't let it dry out long enough, you're putting this wet mask back over your face.
Yeah. But then it was durable. That mask, you would keep that for a year or two. Any play date, or we didn't call it play date. We just went over to people's houses and played.
Bro, it was in a trunk. It was in a trunk full of costumes and old swords.
You would always see it in a pile of toys.
Yeah.
At a certain point, part of it would be broken, where it would actually be sharp edges.
Yeah.
And could like slice and cut you. But you tried to make that mask last as long as possible. You cared more about maybe hanging it on the wall or put it in your toy box than you did about actually wearing it the night of.
But those plastic jumpsuits got tossed. They never stuck around.
Those were like little Sizzler eating bibs. Like, you'd put that on and you could eat whatever you like. You would just it was another plastic that didn't breathe, or vinyl, or I don't know what it was made of.
Yeah.
But if the wind just caught that, like especially in the Northwest, if it was a little bit windy, that thing would just scatter.
Or even worse if it rained.
Yeah.
And so that plastic is there's water between the plastic and your skin.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was awful.
Yeah.
Can you remember being one of those Ben Cooper style costumes?
Yeah.
No?
So I mean, I remember my parents didn't take as many photos as your parents.
Okay.
So I don't.
Well, my parents loved me. So.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, I couldn't specifically remember, but I do remember. I felt like I was Dracula one year.
Full plastic mask.
Yeah, full plastic mask. Because I think that transitioned to the next year being the first year I actually used makeup to be Dracula.
Yes.
Because it was so uncomfortable.
And everyone has that phase. That's what we were going to talk about next. Everyone has their Dracula with full makeup
Were you going to be
and hair.
Were you going to paint your face white with some blood, or were you going to be sort of green or blue Dracula? Like
Yeah.
people kind of mixed it up a little.
Yeah, and that's funny because I have a picture of me and my sister. She was like a 50s dancer, like Grease style.
Yeah.
And I was Dracula, and I had blown my hair out and sprayed white into it, and I did whiten my face up and did the little blood trickle in the corner.
Yeah.
Right? You know, the full.
Sometimes you'd do little black shadows under the eyes to make your eyes feel a little more hollow
I feel
out.
like if I looked at the picture again, yes, I did have a little
Kids
bit of that.
today would actually be able to go online and get the contours and all
yeah.
the different little makeup tricks to really like bring it to life. But we just would just smear it on like sunscreen, and because didn't really know what you were doing, like if you got a hot or if it rained. If you wipe stuff off your head, like later on, you look in the mirror and be like, I wiped off part of it here, part of it there. You just look a wreck.
Got these big smudges everywhere.
Yeah.
But no, I thought I looked good. I had the plastic teeth in. I think I did a good job.
What's funny too is when you do the fake blood,
Yeah.
like sometimes it would actually drip onto your costume, which then you're like, oh, I wish I would have had the vinyl.
Yeah.
Like the vinyl plus.
You wish you had that
like,
bib now.
Instead of, I wish I had that little Halloween
How
bib.
much blood are you using at that point, though?
Like before you know what you're doing, you're just sort of squirting it on, like on the side of
Okay,
your
I guess you're making a mistake.
because you
the
want it to
first
sort of
time.
drip down
Yeah.
the side of your mouth. But of course, sometimes it would drip down
Well,
onto
when
your shirt.
I did it, I was using like red makeup.
Okay.
So it's like I didn't break like a blood packet or something cool.
Oh yeah, see,
like
because
how
I
most
remember a
people
little blood
would.
pack, little things.
Well, that was later.
Okay.
I was a little young when I did this, so I just used like red makeup for the corner. But then I have a picture of my neighbor, Dan. Shout out to Dan. And it was a year where I went as a prisoner, like the old style. Like I had the
Black and
round
white
hat,
stripes.
black and white stripes. I remember specifically I had to order a ball and chain from Oriental Trading Company, and I was psyched because I'm like, I'm gonna get a ball and chain. My parents also ordered me a hatchet because for some reason I was gonna be, go with me here.
Yeah.
I was gonna be a prisoner who also was beat up and killed in prison. So I am now an undead prisoner.
nice.
Which I made my face white. I had blood coming out of my nose and my mouth. Use blood packet.
Those were my
styles
favorite
for those.
costume when you do the crossover. Like, what if
Yeah.
you were Frankenstein escaping from jail? Or,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it was like I had a machete because I was out for vengeance.
Yeah,
I was a vengeful prison spirit.
which kind of probably reinforced you belonged in prison.
Yeah, Jesus.
And what's great when you ordered that, this wasn't Amazon. You didn't. Your parents didn't order it the night before.
No, this
was
was
a
like
catalog in August.
a month and a half or more out, and it's like I'd forgotten that we'd ordered it when it finally came.
Yeah, like
And I was
snail mail for
psyched.
sure.
Because I think I also ordered these big rubber monster hands.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God. Those things those stayed around forever. They don't even make these.
Because we didn't have Amazon. We didn't have
Monster
Spirit of
hands.
Halloween.
Yeah.
There was no big Halloween
No,
store.
but I mean that they do not even make this shit anymore. These rubber monster hands that I have, like you cannot find these. They were so cool. I love them. They stayed around forever. They're probably in the shelter here somewhere. To be honest, like
Yeah, this guy has all his toys from his childhood.
yeah, and I bet they haven't faded or worn. I bet they're as thick and rubbery as they were then.
Yeah.
But yeah, my friend Dan, like I said, he was the gentleman vampire that I was. Different costume. Like, I didn't know him when I was a Dracula, but it's like literally same thing. White face, blood. He went through his Dracula phase at that time.
You're looking for any white shirt you can find, something buttoned up, buttoned all the way to the top.
Oh yes, a black vest.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously the cape, black pants that would normally be worn to church.
You either blow out your hair or you would comb it really nicely for the contrast.
When I was a little kid, my mom had those McCall's Simplicity Butterick patterns, and I don't have a picture of it, but one of my favorite costumes, to be honest, was a bat costume she made me when I was little. I think I might have been like 4 or 5. And the reason I liked it is because it was so cutesy, but it was great. Like it had like purple piping. And I think that it was actually made out of like black fabric that had little purple bats on the fabric with little stars and everything.
Yeah.
It had like its own little put over your head bonnet with ears that you'd tie under your chin. And so it was like, it had wings, right? The costume is basically bat wings.
Yeah.
But there were bats on the wings and it was piped out in purple. And then you had the ears that went on your head. And man, I loved that thing. Like it just looked so cool to me when I was little.
Those McCall patterns, like, because I remember as a kid watching like The Princess Bride. It was on TV. And my dad, I think, was on cruise. I was a Navy kid. And my mom, I took one of his like blue like rayon shirts, but it was way too big. And my mom just took some of these patterns, and then she made me and my I still have my bear when I was a kid, my polar bear, and she made us like matching pirate shirts.
Oh, rad!
You know, and then we just put on these little like, you know, I don't know, little pull up pants, and we're just little pirates. Like we have like matching outfits, but it's the kind of stuff that those patterns, your moms would they'd whip it out and like have a costume for you in just like, you know, 30 minutes.
No, and you know, and there's lots of stuff online now, you know, it's like, oh, you know, DIY, like cosplay is so crazy huge. It's like its own industry now. And I get that. And there's people who are like, you know, they're doing great things. I don't want to take away from that because that's an art in and of itself. Like there's these people who like make these, you know, Five Nights at Freddy's costumes. They 3D print the material, they put it together.
Some of these costumes are better than what the studios are doing.
Yeah. Oh, they're so freaking cool. But it's like there is something lost in just that simplicity. You know what I mean? Like there is literally like, it's a different world because it's like you do have these guys who literally look like Iron Man. They look like Iron Man.
Yeah.
But it's like,
but when we were when we were kids, it would be like an Iron Man costume, but made out of like whatever loose material you had around the house.
Made out of like layers of felt.
Yeah.
And it's like there's just something endearing about that. That's because getting it perfect is great.
It's two sides of a great pendulum.
Yeah.
Like you've gone beyond and better what the studios have created or close to, or for us, it was as lo-fi as you could get, but it had this sort of like,
it's the fact that it was
fan art kind of. Yeah.
It was the fact that it was like your mom made it for you. It was this touch tone of like, of love and dedication. And it's the fact that you got close. That was the cool part. It was like, I know what you are. Like, you're not some weird red and gold
You're
glob.
not the Flash. You're a quick boy.
Yes. You're not Batman. You're Bat Lad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so it was very cool. I don't know. And I hope that comes back. I do. I hope there's a resurgence at some point of that coming back. And, you know, we see people taking on, you know, like people being okay with lo-fi.
Yeah.
People just being all right with it. And not because it's cool, not because it's like how people collect vinyl now. It's just cool to not be perfect and to just try.
Like the best way of analogy is like when Spider-Man tried to make his own costume before he got it right.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like.
Well, like, and this goes into what we are talking about next, taking your costume to school and what a slog it can be to take your costume to school with you, depending on what you chose.
Yeah.
We were watching a video like I had mentioned earlier, I think, about a 1986 school parade.
Yeah, and I remember. I mean, for me, again, growing up in Navy base, like every school I went to, you did these school parades, and I just thought all schools did this, but apparently some people didn't do this.
I don't remember doing them. I'm sure we did, or maybe we had an assembly so everyone could see everyone else's costume, but I don't remember doing a parade specifically, like each class coming out. We may have, and my brain is shot.
That'll make sense to what you said. Like when you saw the video, you're like, every kid wore a costume. Like no one's just walking around in their everyday clothes.
Yeah.
And I think if you were at a school that had the school parade, you rushed, even if you didn't have a costume, you rushed the night before. Like Matt will post some photos of him from Halloween. One I could find was my mom made like a scarecrow costume the night before, so I'd have something to wear during the school parade. I by no means was like, I want to be a scarecrow for Halloween. It was just sort of like, what do we have around the house? What pattern does she have? So I think if you knew you were going to be in a parade at school, you went out of your way to make sure you had something on. Where I think some schools where you don't have the parade, you would show up and some kids would dress up, and other kids were like, it's Tuesday.
Yeah, if you weren't showing off, it didn't really matter, unless you really cared about the holiday. But yeah, it was endearing to see these kids, because I think that when you look at the 70s and 80s and 90s, which is sort of like the eras we're talking about, even though we didn't grow up in the 70s, I was thinking to myself how the traditions between like probably 75 and 85 probably are not crazy different.
I think the only difference is like the same way some people now look back at, like, in the 90s, you could just buy a house, so cheap compared to how much houses are. I think for us, it's like 1975, you could go do Halloween and you would just eat all your candy and not think about it. 1985s, we had the commercials like, there might be razor blades in your apples. Or
yes.
Someone might have given you
X-ray
drugs.
all your candy.
So I think even us in like 85, 87, we were still a little nostalgic for, like, in the 70s, you could just do whatever you wanted.
And that's probably true. I think the general beliefs of what Halloween was supposed to be like, and like the general traditions were the same.
No, I agree with you.
It's kind of like how, it's not like, oh, we were in the 70s, we were carving turnips,
No.
and then we moved into pumpkins in the 80s. But
kind of the same candy, some of the same costumes.
Yeah.
We weren't that far off.
And
You're
so
right.
that's what I'm saying is, like, looking at these kids from like 86, like that, I think is pretty indicative of, the earlier decade. I saw there's a kid who dressed as like a zombie, like paramilitary guy, and he had like a full toy rifle, with like a wooden stock and like clearly like a metal barrel, like one of those old wooden ones. Well, and then there was another kid, I think he was dressed as like a cowboy, and he had like real like toy pistols.
Yeah.
And there's so many kids who had like, large fake meat cleavers, and obviously like 7 or 8 Freddy Kruegers with full razor glove and everything. And I went to school as Freddy Krueger one time, but I got a red and gray sweater. Like
Not the red and green?
No. And I can't remember if I just didn't know, or
You have like one kid, he never watched the movie.
exactly.
Poser.
I had the proper glove, but yeah, I think I had this red and gray sweater, and I didn't realize until later, what a fool I was.
You had like the Walmart censored copy of Nightmare on Elm Street. Like,
I'm Dream Gregory, like I don't Franklin Krieger.
yeah.
But it was just funny. So it's like I got up really early and I had to put on all this like face lacquer that you had to heat up. You like had to boil it.
Oh, wow.
And then my mom helped me put it on, and then we had to paint all the little spots so I could be Freddy Krueger. And then I went to school all day. I'm at school, and school goes fine, and I'm in my makeup and everything. And I lived so close to the middle school that I could just walk home. I'm walking home, and how it is in Oregon, it starts raining out of nowhere for no reason. And water is hitting my face, and all of these chunks of makeup just start peeling off me. So I'm walking home, and if somebody is looking through their window, they would see a discount Freddy Krueger at about maybe 5'5" with a backpack on, and just like chicken skin falling off his face.
I'm melting. See, this reminds me, I went as a zombie one year where you had to it was like that sort of like oatmeal-y kind of makeup to make you look all, and it was, I do remember the worst part was when you have to sit through the entire day of school, you're like, I did not think this out very well. Like, you have makeup kind of getting on other stuff. You feel like some of it's like running down your face throughout the day.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I did not think this out very wisely.
Well, yeah, and obviously you're like, you can't help but touch your face. So it's like you basically made like a thing where it's like you're going to be poking at your face all day long.
Yeah.
I know that Quinn, my daughter, she's 7 now. And so they can wear costumes to school, but it's like there's like a laundry list of crap you can't wear now.
Yeah.
And it's like when we were looking at that parade, I'm not just looking at that one video. We lived through this. And so it's like, you can probably recall yourself all the different costumes you saw when you were kids. And it's like, it wasn't just cutesy stuff. It was like, people who said like, I'm not going to be Jason, but I'm going to be hockey mask murder guy. And so it's like hockey mask, white shirt, blood all over it, some sort of like weapon. That was fine in school. Schools didn't care about any of that.
But they would catch you. Hey, spit out that gum.
Yeah, right. Not even on Halloween can
Yeah.
you have gum in an assembly.
Now here's your cleaver back. Get out there.
Let's transition to I think is a crucial part of Halloween night, because what we're talking about is sort of like leading up to Halloween.
We've built up. We figured out the costume.
So now it's either the day of or maybe a day before. Did you go pumpkin pail or plastic bag, either given out at like a Wendy's or at a gas station,
Yeah.
or something they might have had like on the rack, maybe early on in Kmart or something like that? Or did you go pillowcase?
See, pillowcase. Yeah, pillowcase was a popular one, I think. Like, I think there was a time where you would have the plastic, like, sometimes you'd have the plastic pumpkin.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'd have your plastic bucket from, like, your Happy Meal from McDonald's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The 86 McBoos.
But I do think as you're getting a little bit older, like, that was fine when you were five or, 4 or 5
Yeah.
or 6. But now that you're 6 or 7, you don't want to have the, like, you're a big kid now. And I do remember, like, as you got a little bit older, 7, 8, it was cooler to go around with some janky pillowcase, because like, I'm going to get all the candies.
Yeah.
That one, the plastic pail's not big enough for it. 2, I'm not a kid anymore.
Now you're kind of calling me out, like, cause I think that I never went with pillowcase.
Well, you weren't white trash, Your parents would buy you the nice.
I know they bought me the economy sized pail. It's like, son, you're going to need the larger pail this year. No, because I remember
we were the kids where the neighbors were like, they're not far from a stick up, but okay.
I was trying to find out when plastic pails first came about, and I honestly did a little research. I didn't do as much as I could, but I know I found one that it was from Empire Plastics from 1968, and I don't think I had the 1968 version, but I for sure had that exact same pumpkin pail, and I loved it because it was big. It had like, the pumpkin had sharp teeth instead of the dorky square teeth, which I love. I love that, but it's like, it was square eyes, square nose, sharp teeth, and then it had this great thick handle. Like, it was almost like flat licorice. It was a awesome handle on that thing. And it was bolted in on either side. And my sister and I definitely each had one of those. We may have had a couple more around the house. I have a picture of me later using like an open top bucket.
Oh, nice.
Like the open top bucket one. So it's like, and you can get those now pretty much anywhere. Like, I bought my kids ones from Safeway, and they're glow in the dark. I'm a sucker for any glow in the dark stuff. So they have these 2 big buckets they might use this year, but we have like an arsenal of stuff that they can pretty much use anything they choose, as long as it's not a pillowcase.
See, I think the pillowcase for me was like, it was one of those things where it's not something you just thought of on your own. You were like, oh, this is all we have. We're going to do the pillowcase. It was like one of those things that like you see the older kids doing it.
Yeah.
And then you were like, oh, this is probably cooler to do the pillowcase than the bucket.
I saw a lot of busted ass pillowcases, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
It's funny that you bring up like that I wasn't white trash, so I didn't do that, because every single time I've asked somebody, were you pail or pillowcase? Nobody, by the way, said plastic bag.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever said, oh, I got one of those plastic bags.
Like, I feel like the plastic bag, I don't know. Yeah.
I've never used
Me
one.
neither. Yeah.
So I don't know who's doing that, but I know that they were out there, so I have to ask. But as far as the pillowcase goes, like, I asked a mutual friend of ours, Steven, about that. He submitted his story, and he was like, oh, pillowcase, man. He's like, I was poor as hell. It's like every single person who's used pillowcase has attributed it to
Like,
poor finances.
yeah, your parents are like, you're about to go out there and get a bunch of free candy. I ain't spending any money on like some apparatus, something for you to put it in.
I don't remember these plastic Empire pumpkin pails costing $29.99 or anything.
No, but I think when I was a kid, it was really just you outgrew the plastic pail. Like, it's just like as you got older,
I didn't.
the cool kids, Matt. The
God
cool
damn it.
kids weren't
You're
eating up.
such a jerk. All right. fine. Yeah, dude, but it's like, did you ever see somebody who is like out with a pillowcase, but it's like, you're like, of all the pillowcases in the house, this is the one you picked? Like, this
I know.
thing's nasty, bro.
No. There would be some nasty.
Like,
because your parents, your mom's like, you're not taking the nice pillowcase. Here's some of the Gus pillowcases.
Here's this old withered, gremlins pillowcase.
Like something left over from the 70s. Like,
Yeah. No, but I get it. I get that if you know you're going to be out and you know your business, then the pillowcase makes sense.
The pillowcase though was a little delusional because I do remember when kids started doing the pillowcase, you just have people in the group all hyped out like, we're going to fill this whole thing up. We're going to get way more. You're like, no. Well,
first of all,
you're going to get the
like,
same amount of candy as you were going to get.
What pisses me off about the pillowcase is there's no like dedicated handle. You have to spin the bag and then hold the neck. It's like, that's not fun.
And it only encourages you and other people to just try to hit each other with it.
Well, yeah. And then also it's like, dude, if you were a werewolf or any big, like, gloved creature, it's like, that's what I like about the pail is the pail, you just hold out the handle. You just go, here you go, fill it.
At the beginning of the night, the pillowcase was like, it's the one time of the year where you really stock up on hard candy. It's like a sock full of quarters. If somebody hits you with that pillowcase, you're just like, damn it.
What I think is funny is we probably have another 40 minutes of just this in us. And I feel like this is going to be the part of the show that's going to run the longest. It's just the pillowcase.
Like, what was they did a Halloween episode? Nah, more like a pillowcase.
It's a pillowcase pail debate.
Yeah.
I love it. You know what I loved the most? I'll leave it at this because we'll move on to bigger and better. The pillowcase did not have the one thing that to me makes Halloween, which is taking the pumpkin pail and then smelling all of the candy inside of it. You cannot tell me that a big whiff of pillowcase with your gross
smells like Downy
grease on it.
Yeah.
Like 7 weeks of sleeping on this unwashed pillowcase smells nearly as good as just plastic that has been like not even 1 year, like 7 years. What is it? Seasoned. Seasoned pumpkin pail. You're like, this has had 20,000 Snickers minis in this.
You smell all the like generic sweet tarts and like the Nico. Oh, Necca. You're like, it smells like sweet chalk in here. Some executive back in the 80s was like, all these kids with the pillowcases. If we made some Halloween themed pillowcases, people would buy them up. It's like, no, Bob, only the poor kids do that.
No, and
no one's buying the Halloween pillowcase.
No, and it's funny because I really, for a post I wanted to do, I tried my damnedest. And I mean it. I used like 7 different search engines. I tried to find one picture of a kid in the 1980s in a costume holding a pillowcase.
If you took a picture of a kid with the pillowcase, they took your camera and they put it in the pillowcase. Yeah. Those were the kids using pillowcases.
That's awesome.
Yeah. They'd come home with your Jordans if you weren't careful.
They tricked and you treated.
Oh yeah.
But
we were a squirrely bunch.
But it is funny that you mentioned that though, because nowadays they're literally selling pillowcases that are customized to Halloween. You can even put your name on them if you want to. Like, what nonsense. What absolute garbage. Like, if you were going to do that, you would spend the money on a vintage G.I. Joe or Monchi-Cheese or strawberry shortcake pillowcase.
Totally.
And go out old school.
Get your prickly pea, like cha-cha-cha-cha-cha, blueberry or like,
with peculiar purple pie man.
Yeah, exactly.
Peak. So let's talk neighborhoods. Okay? Because you spent a lot of time on Navy bases, and I wanted to know what that was like and if there was anything different from your standard neighbor, like civilian neighborhood, I guess.
So I think for me, like, especially like I lived, I feel like Navy bases, there was a few things that were like advantages.
Okay.
Like that I remember before going into like more civilian was one, because you're on a Navy base, your kids are protected. And so like we really didn't worry about like for me, Halloween was fun because like you would go out with your parents, but then your parents would like let you just go off for a while without them. And it was like sort of like the first time where you really like you're hanging out after dark with your friends, and you can kind of go a few blocks away from your parents and no one's really worried.
And on a Navy base, are you guys even worried about traffic? Because that used to be a huge thing in the 70s and 80s, is kids getting hit by cars. It's why they used to promote face paint and not masks.
Paws makeup is safer than masks. It never blocks vision, and it's hypoallergenic too.
Yeah, on a Navy base, that was another thing that not until, even as a kid, like riding your bicycle, riding your skateboard around, like everyone's pretty conscious because like everybody knows who you are.
Yeah.
If someone were to, and you're not just answering to like your neighbors and to the police, you're answering to your CO, you're answering to your boss.
Yeah,
like,
this
hey,
high stakes.
Hey, Bob, I heard you ran over some kids yesterday. You might be getting demoted. Like that's not, you're on KP duty. Like,
Losing
knock
a
it off.
star for that one.
So no, yeah. So that was one thing. I mean, I really liked Navy bases. Also, it's like there's infrastructure. Like the roads are nice. There's sidewalks. There's
that's kind
bumps.
of what I assumed. It's almost like the neighborhood from Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, and then you have a lot of like just Navy people. Like I always try to tell people, like Navy, Marine, like Army, like it's more like MASH than it is like Jarhead.
Yeah,
like everyone has a sense of humor for the most part. People are like little kids with money, like
a lot of decorations.
Yeah, so
a lot of people participate.
Not like the decorations you have today, because that didn't exist.
Well, sure, but a couple of headstones, skeleton.
But for 80s standards, a lot more decorated than when I started going into the civilian world, and it was like not, there. Sometimes there'd be sidewalks, sometimes there wouldn't.
Yeah,
you definitely were worried about cars in the streets, and people just I don't feel like decorated as much. So as a kid, it was fun. Your parents would just let you go off with the other kids, and you knew you were going to be safe. And it was like your first taste of like, I'm not a teenager yet. I'm not an adult, but like, tonight's going to be fun.
That's fun. See, and we had something similar only in the fact that I am not from a large town, and it was much smaller when I was smaller. Like we had our routine where we lived outside of the main part of town. And so there was basically like a horseshoe that we hit right around here.
Yeah.
But it's like to get to another house that's not in our horseshoe, you're walking non-sidewalked streets in the dark with hairpin turns around here. And so we would do our horseshoe, right? And it was a lot of older people. And so then they got, basically me and my sister were the only two kids besides a couple other kids.
So everyone's buying candy just for you guys.
Yeah, it's almost like we have to do it. Yeah. Otherwise they're not seeing anybody. And
they're giving you more than one or two pieces. We pretty much bought this bucket for you.
Well, and the problem was also a lot of these people, like I said, they're older, so it's like they're making popcorn balls and stuff.
Or they're giving you those little strawberry hard candies.
Yeah,
that had the little center.
Oh God, yeah. And so it's like
Werther's original.
You'd get your little pittance from around the neighborhood, and some people didn't even participate. So it's like we. Out of like the 10 houses we had probably around here, you probably get 7 on a good year. And then we'd have to get in the van, and then we'd get bussed downtown to my aunt's house. And she's like in the hotbed, man. She's in the neighborhoods that are sort of the old downtown, right? So like these are houses that they have plaques on them because they're historical, right? And so it's like there's a lot of good candy finding down there, and
always trying to find the rich neighborhood.
Yeah,
will I get that coveted whole candy? The full size candy bar.
It's happened a couple of times. There's actually a guy who does it now. He not only does he decorate his house with skeletons that look awesome, but this guy every single year we've gone is a full candy bar guy. This is a good guy, and it's in the neighborhood that I used to trick or treat in. One family members have lived in this guy's house, and then family friends have lived in this guy's same house. It's crazy. I don't know this guy personally, but yeah, I've known people who've lived in this house. But yeah, so we'd meet at my Aunt Joan's house. Me and my cousins, and some years I have a picture of us all together. I think there were like 11 of us. So some years it would be different, but it's like my my close cousins and then kind of my extended cousins. We would all meet at Aunt Joan's house, and then we'd go out from there, usually with only like one or two adults. I think after a while, it was totally unsupervised. And very similar to you, this neighborhood was set up with, full sidewalks, and the town was smaller and it was nighttime. So nobody was really driving around here. The only problem is that most of the houses had like their front door on their second story.
Yeah. So
you know what I
going
mean?
up the
So
stairs.
these are a lot of old houses and tons of steps. So you're getting your cardio in this whole time. And it's like,
Sometimes you think there might be too many kids on the porch.
Yeah.
Like this one of these steps might give out, but okay.
yeah. Well, yeah. And the cool thing was, though, is that you're in this horde of kids, and then there's all these other little hordes of kids running around because we're in the popular neighborhood for the city. We're in the historical downtown neighborhood. And so there was a lot of activity going on. It was really cool. It wasn't like, I just did my neighborhood and, we have like 19 kids in the neighborhood. So it's like, you do your 25 houses and you go home. Like we're going to be out for a while.
Yeah.
So did you ever get bussed into a rich neighborhood?
Yeah. So like I lived in military bases for a good part of like my early childhood. And it was sort of nice because everybody wanted to be there. You were sort of stationed. So almost everyone had families. So like I was used to like every house participating for the most part. Very seldomly would you find a house where the lights were out.
Yeah.
When my parents got divorced and I came into the civilian world, then all of a sudden the new dynamics. Like from there we went from military housing to I've lived in apartments. I've lived in a trailer park.
Yeah.
Very different experiences.
Oh man.
And when you live in a trailer park, I lived in a trailer park for like a year and a half after my parents got divorced.
Yeah.
And it was like that's where you start to get the concept of like the kids being like, we're going over to the rich neighborhood.
Yeah.
You're like the gigawatt. Like
That's interesting. So did you guys actually trick or treat in the trailer park? Like,
yeah, so you trick or treat.
actually alive
You trick
there?
or treat in there would be a little bit, but it was like, and the trailer parks are interesting because like you meet a few neighbors, and then most of the other people just don't want to be bothered and are off the grid and don't want to, and that was like
some of them may actually have like warnings to stay away from children.
So that was probably like what you like where you said 7 out of 10 houses.
Yeah,
this would be like 3 out of 10 houses participated, and then you quickly let's go somewhere else.
Yeah,
but the houses that participated, like the trailer park, the houses it was like that overcompensate. It was like we're gonna make this nice for everybody,
and that's cool.
So that was cool. And that was like a transition. Like we'd moved. But yeah, so then it was like you go over the rich neighborhoods, like, and those were like, because on a military base, everybody kind of lives in. It's like Edward Scissorhands. All the houses look the same, or they're like inverted. So if your kitchen's on the left, at the other house it's on the right.
I had already made that illusion, but we'll pretend that Andy came up with that.
But yeah. So like military base is more like Edward Scissorhands. All the houses look the same. Everybody's making close to the same money, or at least that's what it feels like, because everything just looks. When you go into the civilian world or the real world, like most of you live in, you quickly have the dirt poor part of town. By the contrast of like these big, really nice houses. What was funny though is you would think you'd go to the rich neighborhoods and that's where you're going to get the full size candy bars, but sometimes those people are a little skimpier than you would.
I find that totally factually true.
You're getting those like what were the butterscotch hard candies,
or you'd go there and they would give you like one small Tootsie Roll. Yeah. Like they're doing you a favor.
Yeah. Not letting you
even the long ones.
Yeah. Not letting you like grab into the bucket and take a big pile. It's just, they're very much like,
Yeah. They're like, I'm like, your house has pillars.
Yeah.
Do you realize that? Like, you don't have to just give out one. I feel like we got a few more back there.
You feel like you got some of these rich folks where we bought one bag of candy, we're allotting one piece per kid, and when it's done, we'll turn off the porch light. Which is a reason I think, and maybe this is just me as you got a little bit older, those are the neighborhoods that got hit with eggs and got TP'd a lot more than the poor neighborhoods.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it follows real life because they say statistically, like, people of a lower economic status, usually end up like tipping better and
Yeah.
usually end up giving
I think we just
more.
We're just more. I think there's this part. I mean, like I grew up pretty poor, like, and you're just that part of like a little bit of overcompensating. You're like in your head, you feel like this is what everyone else does, and so you want to make sure you're not coming off cheap.
Yeah.
And it's not till I got, now I make really good money, and now I realize, as I hang out with people who actually came from me, and so I'm like, oh, some of these people are really cheap.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And that's kind of funny, like not to bring it back into the modern era, but it's like I have children, so I'm never home for Halloween. Like I really haven't, like only I think 1 year a while back pre-kids did I actually pass out candy in our neighborhood because we're usually gone. So it's the bowl, right? And now I have a scarecrow that screams when you try to take candy, but I make sure that I fill that bowl. I actually took the Spirit Halloween screaming scarecrow and I modified the bowl. I took the old bowl out because it was way too small.
Yeah.
And I put a deluxe size bowl in it and wired it up so that it still works, but there's this much grander bowl for people because like I care. Take a handful. I'm not going to tell you to take one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I feel like I'm one of those people. I love Halloween. Have always loved Halloween.
Yeah.
And Halloween is one of those days where I feel like I would envision I would have so much control of decorating but my wife really loves Halloween. She's like you. She has a very thought on when she decorates and how she does it. And I just I help her. I help cook. I help her with the kids. I do all this stuff. But when it comes to Halloween, it's just like Amy has a plan. Amy's going to make the house look real. And just like, Matt, if you've ever seen one of Matt's houses and how he decorates them, it's amazing.
There's somebody in my neighborhood who I strive to be like, but I put a lot of thought into what I'm going to do with the limited amount of resources I have. Like, I just don't have a lot of time. So I think about it all year. So the little amount of time that I have, I can like just go right to it.
Yeah. And Amy's like one of those, if we're going to go take the kids trick-or-treating and we're not going to be around, she always has a really big bucket, the honor system.
Sure.
And she always makes sure it's like really nice candy, like stuff. Never put anything in there that you wouldn't eat yourself.
Yeah.
Oh
no, I absolutely, I follow that rule. This year, I think, based on some videos we were watching about old candy, and we're going to move into candy next pretty soon here. Oh yeah, baby. I can smell that. I actually want to add some older style candy that I think has gone by the wayside in these past few years. I noticed at Safeway that they have bags of this not older candy. It's not old candy. It's just candy that like no one thinks about because it doesn't get the shelf space of like Reese's and Snickers and Hershey's and all that.
Although I do think when we were kids, some of the old candy, I think those were batches left over from like the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
Like I think there are some candies that are like I think I have this theory on fruitcake. Like when everyone used to give fruitcakes at Christmas, I'm like, whoever continued that tradition today, everyone's just been passing the same. Like they made one batch of these like sometime in the early 1900s, and then it's only just been. If you ever get a fruitcake in the modern day, it's just been regifting after regifting.
You're actually expected. It's an unspoken bond that you're supposed to put it on a shelf and then give it to somebody later.
Yeah.
Like if you actually try to eat it, somebody's like, "What the hell are you doing? You're
That's fossilized. You don't crack your teeth.
So you don't eat those, idiot. You give them. They're like a baton of
Look at the date.
history.
1909. Come on.
Moron. What
You were talking.
we completely
No, I'm sorry.
you brought Christmas into this and you ruined everything.
I sideswiped you, but you were talking about you're at Safeway looking at old candy.
No,
That's not old candy.
But it's like, well, also side note, you say that you get out of the way of your wife when she's decorating. So this weekend, just yesterday, we started bringing things out because I have an issue with bringing stuff out too early because in my neighborhood, sometimes it gets swiped. I've had that problem in the past. So I actually wait to really, really decorate till like a week before. And so we put out the graveyard yesterday and I was having the kids help me. They really wanted to, but they're kids, they're 5 and 7. So it's like, I'm letting them put stuff up, but it's that thing where every time they have an idea, I go, that's a great idea. We're not going to do that for this time, but maybe in the future. And like after a while, I was just like, my teeth were clenching and they weren't doing anything the way I wanted it. But ultimately it came out fine. And actually, I got to say, my daughter, she has the knack for set dressing that I've always wanted, her to have, because I pay attention to those details, like the things no one are gonna see, So she went inside and got some like salad tongs. She wrapped them in paper towels. Then she went and found mushrooms, picked up the mushrooms so that the salad tongs wouldn't be poisoned. And then she went and she actually placed them next to this skull and this headstone.
Oh, wow.
So it looked like the mushrooms were growing right next to the headstone. And man, primo.
Well, see, and Amy found these mushrooms. She has these little mushrooms that have a little solar pack, so the mushrooms glow and flicker at night.
Ooh.
So Amy,
That's cool.
Amy will have me and the girls will help her decorate, and she's really good at finding fun stuff for the girls to do. But she very much has themes, and so whenever. If it's me or the girls, I've learned not to. The girls, if they have a certain recommendation, Amy's like, "Oh, that sounds great. Maybe next year." But it's not going to fit. She's very much like you.
Absolutely.
It's very much,
I will give
have
them
a plan.
maybe next year you can do that.
Yeah.
But
it always looks good. So,
Yeah. And the thing is, I'll say this, is that, there have been times when the kids have surprised me, like especially Quinn. Like I said, she kind of has this eye for detail. So it's like, I'll let them do their thing, knowing I'm going to rearrange the things I don't like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it lets them feel like they did a thing. And this year, I let them do our tarot card black magic table. It's got a bunch of skulls and bones and stuff on it. And I let them just do that. And I just said to myself, hey man, just whatever. And they did a good job, I think.
Amy will let them look at the catalogs. And it's sort of like when you were a kid at the Sears catalog. You'll circle everything, but then your parents will pick out what they're actually going to get you. And Amy will let them circle all these things, but then she'll only pick the circles that work within the theme. So the kids do feel like,
Totally.
like they get and if there's ever something they really want that doesn't really work, it's a great indoor decoration, but it's not going outside of the display.
This can go in the corner of your room.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that, man.
But she keeps it fun. It's amazing. And yeah.
So getting back to the main drag of Halloween night, it's 1985 through 1992.
Walking around the neighborhood, what are we going to get?
Yeah. Well, even before that, I want to talk about scary houses.
Okay.
I want to talk about not just decorations. Did you ever come across a house that had a haunted walkthrough in it, or a haunted backyard? There's an old episode of Roseanne where Roseanne would have people come to the door, and her literal house was like a walkthrough haunted house. It was
nice.
The front room, the kitchen, the garage. The kids leave, they get the candy.
Yeah,
Did you ever come across that?
I've come across it as an adult. I think as a kid, I never. I don't know. For the most part, no, but. When I was a kid on Navy bases, there were people who would do scary stuff where they would come out of the bushes with the chainsaw, or it wasn't quite the elaborate of someone turning their garage into a haunted house.
Yeah. I've seen that.
But there were definitely
a couple of years ago.
There were definitely people who would try to pull little pranks on you.
Yeah.
And it kept it fun, kept you on your toes.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned the guy with the chainsaw. I don't know. It's a child's brain, so it's my memory is not what it used to be, but I remember distinctly the house across the street from my Aunt Joan's house, and I don't remember anything particular about the people who lived there or anything. They seemed like normal people. I actually thought they were kind of like an older couple, and I remember one year as a kid, there was a box on their front porch for Halloween. A big box, and it looked kind of like maybe it was like painted almost like circus lines, like a big top. A house that's being fumigated for bed bugs. But it's it was just in their yard. It was just this big box in their yard. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. It doesn't really look scary. I don't know what this is. And then bam, the front of it just comes thundering down.
Oh, nice.
And somebody comes running out of it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really great. And so that was like their big thing for the night, is like this guy just randomly hiding in this box and breaking out to scare kids all night. It was rad.
I feel like when I got into like the civilian world, the real world, it's like some houses you're like, oh, that's a really scary house. I can't wait to. And then you didn't know if you were actually walking into like the Clopex's,
Yeah.
like front door from the burbs, and you're like, oh no, this is just a creepy house.
Yeah.
No candy, like, or you just have old like candy from the old world.
Yes. It's those dreaded black or orange wrapped candies,
Oh,
those
yeah.
peanut butter kisses. I found
Yeah.
that's
or
what they're
anything,
called, those
or
pieces of
anything
shit.
wrapped in wax paper.
Oh God. Oh man, like almost like those Chinese rice paper candies.
Yeah.
Just garbage.
Our friend Sarah has an interesting, like, she grew up in Albany like you did.
Yeah.
And there was this house that was in a nice part of town, a nice neighborhood, but it was like the worst house on the block. And kids were scared of it during, the regular part of the year. But I think the woman's name was like Witchitoria or Witchy. She made it really fun. It was the
Did she
house.
call herself Witchy Poo?
Witchy Poo, that's right. She called herself Witchy Poo. And you would go to this scary house that people would be scared of year round and wasn't that inviting. But on Halloween was just the perfect scary house. And of course, this would be the house that you would get the full-size candy bar.
Yeah.
So kids would drive, their parents would drive them to this neighborhood just to go to this house.
That's awesome.
And I think she showed up I'm sure all the houses around her were just giving that one allotted piece of candy.
That one goddamn like stupid like the three pieces of like the tiny Tootsie Rolls. I'm going back to the Tootsie Rolls because it's a bullshit candy.
Yeah.
And it's like, and the tiny one is the most bullshit. And it's like, you're going to give me 1 to 3 pieces. That's my whole door knock.
Yeah.
Like, kiss my ass. But that's funny because it's like, so she basically was a non-entity all year.
Yeah.
And then she would don a witch's outfit, I'm assuming,
I would assume, yeah.
and play up the whole thing.
And it was so notorious that other kids would travel to this house to be,
That's fantastic.
and she just turned out to be the nicest lady on the block and full-size candy bars.
Yeah. See, and Albany must be full of crazy people like that. And I say crazy in a good way. I think that's so cool that you would entertain kids like that. There was a house, again, not too far, and we still trick or treat this house, but different people live there. When I was a kid, it's not only did they kind of do the house up, not crazy. You know what I mean? Just like they used to have a line that ran from the upstairs window down to a tree.
Oh, wow.
And they would drop a skeleton or a ghost down and then pull it back and do it again.
That's amazing.
And the rest of the house, they would turn off all the lights and then they would have pumpkins and everything. But the thing about this house, and I wouldn't trick or treat it for multiple years because of this, but you would go up and you'd knock on the door and it wasn't just, oh, here's your candy and somebody's in a costume. It's literally, you knock on the door, there is a floating light from a candle that dances around the window, like the window in the door.
Yeah, the window pane inside.
Yeah, and it's frosted, so you have no idea what's happening. And then the door opens, and it's a woman in a white dress, white hair, with an actual like lantern with white makeup on. She doesn't say a word the entire time you're up there, but she checks your face with the lantern, each kid, one at a time. And then you say trick or treat, and then she keeps watching you while she gets the candy and gives one to each of you and then closes the door.
That's amazing.
And it was scary as shit. And so I wouldn't go. I think 4 years in a row, I wouldn't do it.
But the pillowcase kids, they were there.
No, and they were. And it's like, and then finally I went up and did it, and it was as goddamn scary doing it as it was on the porch. It didn't get any like, oh, this isn't as scary as I thought. No, it's fucking terrifying.
You're
it was
like
awful.
hair on the back of your neck rise here.
Yeah.
Hey, we know
And God bless this lady. I don't know who she was. And I don't know if it was maybe multiple ladies doing it over the years. Maybe somebody took it over, They don't do it anymore, but it was at least a 4, 5, 6 year trend for sure. And it was so cool. It's probably one of the coolest things that I've ever experienced on Halloween, to be honest.
That's
Because
amazing.
it's a guaranteed constant commitment that this is going to happen for you, and
Yeah.
you wait for it every year.
I mean, that's a performance. That's the show. That's the big show.
That's the big goddamn show for
Right
sure.
there.
Here is a Halloween story submitted by our friend Stephen. As a somewhat successful grown-up adult, I'm here to humble brag to all your listeners that I am that full-size candy bar house in the neighborhood now. Every year I go to Costco and spend way too much money on candy bar boxes and sit outside just so I can watch some probably 10-year-old boy Fortnite dance in my front yard when he sees he is getting the real deal, Snickers. It is of course gratifying when they go running back to their parents screaming at the top of their lungs. They got full-sized candy bars, which immediately turns every head on the block and brings in the crowd. Of course, part of this is insurance against potential miscreants. There is a special place in hell for anybody that is going to smash the pumpkins of the full-sized candy bar house, but it is mostly just paying it all forward. Candy collecting and trick or treating is some serious business, at least in my book. Probably around 4th grade or so is when it really was mission critical for me. I was that poor kid growing up. So naturally, candy wasn't something I was always getting a lot of. Halloween was when a kid could stock his candy box up to the max and hold it in reserves for most of the rest of the year, or a couple weeks. This was willpower dependent. The goal of the night was really simple. You got to fill that candy box up with the good stuff, not that Tootsie Roll and candy corn filler garbage. The good stuff. I don't remember being a particularly choosy candy kid. I generally eat most of the candy bars. I seem to recall at one time they had a run of flavoured Tootsie Rolls. I actually did like those, like orange and lime and whatnot. I haven't seen those in years. The only thing out in my book were regular Tootsie Rolls, Smarties, Necco wafers and candy corn. I liked some of the ones you never see anymore. Mr. Goodbar, classic. Crackle bars were a hit. Gummy things weren't overly common back then, but nerds and hard candies were, and those were fine. I am actually curious if me and my brothers were the weird ones here. We planned intricately our trick or treating. We strategized. We drew maps. Calvin and Hobbes is an all-time favourite comic of mine, and I can truly say I honestly attempted to live a life of Calvin many times, and tried to have adventures of Calvin many times. I wanted to be Calvin as a kid, so I'm not exaggerating when I say we would be in our garage, our own version of the Get Rid of Smelly Girls Club, drawing maps of the neighbourhood on whatever large enough paper we could find and crayons, probably literally a cut-up paper grocery bag. We would get in arguments about which direction to go out of the house, and our neighbourhood is a loop. A big old irregularly shaped circle, but a damn circle nonetheless. 3 boys drawing a map of a neighbourhood that is largely a loop, in a heated argument about largely left or right out of the house. If they readily sold fake blood in 5-gallon buckets back then, I would have found a way to have bought it and probably used it all. Fake putty skin, fake blood were absolute staples. Generally, I don't recall a theme. I wasn't going as a character or a person from the films. I wasn't Freddy Krueger or anything, just something gross and dead. The great candy trade was a time-honoured tradition. You dumped your haul out on the floor, not only to just take it all in all its glory, but to then begin the bartering. There was always someone that coveted something, and a savvy kid could leverage that. The clever kid, or maybe just the weird-ass kid, is the kid that developed a taste for the candy nobody liked and could really stockpile it up, if one could do such a thing. If one was so inclined, they could have been a Tootsie Roll baron. Madness, though. There was a simple joy in the ordering of your candy, grouping it by name and type and, of course, quality, the rank order hierarchy of the quality of your candy, having this organised bar chart of candy laid out in front of you. The Snickers bars neatly stacked next to the Mounds bars, next to the Almond Joy, next to the Butterfingers, and so on down the list. Then deciding, well, which goes where. Does a Butterfinger outrank a Baby Ruth? Obviously, yes. And how far down the list do you have to go until the trade equivalency is full on 2-for-1s? I'm going to need 2 of your lame Baby Ruths for one of my golden Snickers. 3-to-1s? It starts to become fighting words. The chocolate to fruit crossover was always hard. What is a Snickers to Skittles conversion equivalency?
I got 5 pieces of candy. I got a chocolate bar. I got a quarter. I got a rock.
Pail or plastic bag or pillowcase, what's in that thing? What did we get? We're out, our feet hurt, our faces wet from the mask.
I know what you didn't want to get.
Yeah.
You hope you weren't getting a box of raisins.
Yes. Oh, God.
It's like serving cucumber sandwiches at a Super Bowl party.
the box of raisins. What I don't know what cruel Heinrich Himmler individual is buying these.
It's like the hippie,
thinking they're doing the
hippie
right thing.
teacher from Beavis and Butthead thought that might be a healthy snack, you know.
Yeah, the kids are gonna get so much candy that a healthy option might be nice. It's not. It went in the garbage. I'm not kidding.
You didn't want the apple, which was funny in the 80s. Don't eat the apple. There could be razor blades in the apple. But yeah, no one's eating the apple. No one's going to a stranger's house, getting an apple. Like, unfortunately, what happened was you were throwing that up in the air. It was splattering on the ground.
Oh,
you were throwing it at other people.
Yeah, you threw that thing in the creek.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny because I actually have that on here. Like, I put together a list of candies just because there were so many. And I don't even have nearly enough here. But that was something that I thought was funny because we have box of raisins, popcorn ball.
Oh, God, yeah.
Apple.
And I feel like the apple, no one's eating it. I feel like we have a friend, Wyatt, who loves, everyone loves apples, but Wyatt really loves apples.
Sure.
I could see Wyatt being like, you gonna eat the apple? No, I brought my own.
Yeah.
Like, he
put them in his
wouldn't
bag
trust
already.
a creepioso apple, but he'd be walking, eating an apple.
Yeah. No, and that's funny because I was like, I put it on there because it was like in the recesses of my mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, apple. People did get apples, right? Like, I remember that. And so I put it on there, and it's funny. It's like one of the first things you said.
I feel bad. The popcorn ball, I feel like most kids aren't eating this. You find it weird. And you have really well-intended people being, I was trying to class this block up a little bit. I was trying to show these kids homemade confections.
Yeah.
Like, someone put a lot of effort into that. They're showing you a nicer, you too can enjoy some of the nicer side of life. And we're just looking at them. It's like, you weirdo. Why? I'm not eating this.
Yeah, I'm not going to eat this garbage. It's something my grandma makes.
This delicious, homemade, organic, beautiful,
Sometimes even put in like a custom printed Halloween style little baggie.
Yeah.
It's the same thing too. I hated finding, like, you go all the way up to the door, you do the whole rigmarole, the trick or treat, all that. You're putting out all this effort. Somebody gives you a loose, top tied, but like loose bag of like candy corn, like something that you could get anywhere forever all the time, or the pumpkins. The Brock's pumpkins.
The thing I hate about candy corn and Brock's pumpkins are aesthetically, they are amazing. They are Halloween.
Sure.
Like, candy corns are but what sucks about candy corns is they are so aesthetically pleasing. They're an image of Halloween. You want them to taste good. You really do, but they are horrible.
Yeah.
They are just disgusting candies.
Yeah, I mean,
some of you might like it.
Yeah, no, we're sparking a big debate right now, and that's totally fine. And I don't even hate candy corn per se.
Oh, see, he's just trying to appeal to the masses
Oh,
here.
I don't want my house set on fire by the candy corn conglomerate.
We'll play good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
Matt likes candy corn. Not enough to say he likes it, but enough to say, I will say just straight out, they're an abomination. They're just decoration. They are the potpourri. They're the potpourri of your candy bucket.
All right. No, see, my biggest problem with them isn't their existence, because I think you're right. I think they're a beautiful aesthetic, and they do belong in like a big glass bowl at your grandmother's house,
Which
as
is
a sign of the season.
feats, like,
yeah, but I don't think that they're so common and given out like water that you shouldn't get them on Halloween night as one of your treats, right? Like, we're losing time here, lady. It's usually a lady. Like, I got so many houses I need to hit. If one of the houses I'm hitting is going to be this big dead end with the candy corn, like, I'm losing share here.
yeah.
So that just always pissed me off.
You're like, mini candy bars, gum, suckers. Give me some of the good stuff.
Yes. And it's like all of the stuff that was classic. Like let's just go through a few just so we can say that we talked about it. Like on Halloween, you're going to get your M&M Mars stuff. You're going to get your Crunch bars. Sorry. I started with like the one thing that's not M&M Mars.
Yeah.
So you're going to get your M&M Mars stuff. You're going to get your Snickers. You're going to get your little Mars bar. You're gonna get your Milky Way.
And see, I gotta say, with the Milky Way,
Yeah.
like the Milky Way is one of those things. I would never buy it. I would never eat it. But you got the Milky Way, and it only validates. You eat it, and you're just like, there needs to be something else here. What's missing? And you realize a Milky Way is just a Snickers without like the caramel and the peanuts or whatever.
You're like, what's
You know?
missing? Peanuts.
Like, I
and
understand.
nougat.
I understand now why they say Snickers satisfies. They're very aware that Milky Way does not.
No. It is a early 1900s placeholder candy
Yeah.
bar. But you get M&Ms, right? That was probably back when I don't even know if they had peanuts in the M&Ms at the time. Probably. You certainly were
Not when we started, but as we got older, the peanuts showed up.
So you had all those staples, and then you could expect obviously the Baby Ruths, the Butterfingers, the Three Musketeers, right? And as you got older, the sizes actually kind of changed because sometimes you get those little squares.
Like instead of getting the full size candy bar, they started to go mini. They turned into little tiny.
They went super mini.
They went the other way.
Yeah, it was wild. And then it was like you'd get those Hershey bars. And that covered a lot of chocolate. You'd also get like in some regions, not around me, you would get like Clark bar.
Yeah.
You run into stuff like that.
If you got a Hershey Kiss, you're like, it's not Christmas yet. You can't put Hershey Kiss out until after Thanksgiving.
That's funny that you mentioned that because like that would show up every so often. And now more than ever because it's like they do holiday everything for those.
No.
It's like
Hershey Kisses aren't supposed to come out until after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, no, that's really funny that because they would make it in there. Absolutely. And then you'd have like your sweet stuff. So you'd have like your little sweet tarts, right? You'd get that little two dot paper thing of sweet tarts. And you'd always hope for like, I would always hope for like the double purple. Never a green. It always screwed me over if there was a green in there.
Yeah. I always thought I didn't like sweet tarts until you started eating some of the generic ones.
Yeah. Oof.
And you go, this is just decorated chalk.
Yeah.
Chalk.
And then sweet tarts, sort of like fun cousin, the bottle caps.
Oh yeah.
Bottle caps were cool.
I felt like the bottle caps were the first ones to start disappearing as we got older.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. They became this almost like nostalgic candy, like when I don't think it should have been. Like bottle caps, I think were perfectly fine. And yet later we treated them like beech nut gum.
Yeah.
Like, this is only stuff that they chewed in the 1950s.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Bottle caps are fine. Like, I don't know why they ended up going that route.
Yeah.
But then the thing I got more than anything in the world, I think I counted one time, I got like 27, maybe 30 rolls of Smarties.
Yeah, Smarties.
Smarties was like the big weird like go-to because like, I mean, you could kind of buy them anywhere. And so by the end of the night, you were just besieged with Smarties.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like I had this thing with my brother because my brother loved all the tart sweet.
Yeah.
Like, and so I would overwhelmingly like, here's 10 sour candies for just one of your pieces of chocolate. Like I just get rid of these. When I do think about the chocolate that we didn't mention, like the chocolates that you only ate around Halloween, at least for me, were the little box of like Whoppers.
Yes.
Or like the Rolos. What's that? What's those called? The little caramel.
Oh,
Rolos, or they came in that little tube. Like,
yeah, Rolos.
Yeah, Rolos, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they looked like little bunt cakes.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
I feel like
of.
you'd only get those at Halloween.
Yeah, and so that's funny because you kind of jumped ahead of where I was getting at. But yeah, I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about candy that you really only interacted with at Halloween. I have a list here.
Okay.
And so we'll see if there's some on that list that you are part of too. And so obviously Tootsie Rolls are garbage. They're trash. They should all be rounded up and melted into one giant furnace.
Although some of those colorful Tootsie Rolls that were different flavors.
The fruit Tootsie Rolls later got a bit of a pass.
Yeah.
I still didn't like the texture of them.
You would never buy them.
No.
But you would eat them once a year.
Yeah, because they had like all the flavor of Laffy Taffy with none of the charm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so,
you're like, at least it's not a now and later.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now and laters were just get those out of here. I have tried now and laters 2 different times and I hated them both times because they're so hard at the beginning that a candy should not ever be that hard to chew or
Yeah.
like, I guess it's what I'm saying is like my time is precious to me and now and laters aren't that good.
It's like for the amount of effort, the payout is
No.
If I didn't like them now, I definitely don't like them later.
You make me work so hard now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be very
Because what happened is
vengeful
it
later.
starts off like hard and will destroy your teeth.
Yeah.
And when you put in the effort to try to soften it up, it feels like something. It feels like when you had a note in your pocket in
Yeah.
the washer and it comes back in the dryer. And it's just this mashed up piece of lint. Like that's what an hour later turns into. That's your reward.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No, hard pass. But then, yeah, we'd have like sugar daddies and sugar babies would show up a
The
lot.
sugar babies were dangerous because it felt like you were eating like semen. Like it felt like you were eating candy.
Yeah.
But then it would quickly turn into like cement.
Yeah.
Like this gooey
It was like a trap for your
yeah,
mouth.
you were really worried you were going to like take out one of your fillings.
And I don't remember anybody. I personally don't like sugar daddies. So I have nothing against them. I just personally don't like them. I don't hate them like Tootsie Rolls where they should be eliminated.
And I think I have something against them. Like I don't like them, and they're dangerous. They will take out your fillings. They will cost you a dental visit.
Well, that's true.
Allegedly.
Listen, it's big candies on the line. Okay, just calm down. But I have never seen a human being eat a sugar daddy all the way to the stick and just be like, that was pleasant. I enjoyed that. I feel like you get about a minute and a half in and then you're like, okay, I've tasted this. It's kind of a molasses sort of caramel kind of thing. And then you just quit on it because your mouth just gets coated in sugar and you're like, I've seen enough.
Yeah. No, thank you. I mean, if you're gonna go for like the caramel, I guess the little caramel squares, like those were probably the safest of the caramel family.
Because they're pretty soft and chewy.
They're soft and chewy. They're not going to take out your fillings or get stuck in. Well, they probably get stuck in your braces.
In that same. Well, let me ask you this because I was never a fan. I'm apparently not a fan of a lot of candies, but like you were talking about Whoppers, I believe earlier.
Whoppers kind of taste like in my head because I don't know what.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, whenever you ate a Whopper, for some reason I just thought, is this what a mothball tastes like?
Yeah.
It had this weird.
It's that malt. My mom used to love malt, and I never understood the appeal.
It tasted once you started biting into it. It tasted like you ate a piece of candy that had already died.
Yes. That's a good way of saying it.
Allegedly.
The candy tasted like the suit your grandpa was buried in.
Yeah, exactly.
But see, in that vein though, there's all these little boxes of candies that that would permeate your bag at that time. So we talked about the sugar babies, Whoppers, and then Junior Mints.
Oh yeah,
it's a Junior Mint.
The Junior Mint.
It was that ever one that you liked? Did you ever get comfortable eating a Junior Mint?
Here's the thing about Junior Mints. I don't think I liked them as a kid when you got them in the little box.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, because I used to work at a movie theater when I was in college.
Yeah.
And then, Seinfeld, the big box of Junior Mints. I cannot imagine buying a big box of Junior Mints and eating them all in one sitting. Like at that point, I would appreciate, give me a box with like 2 or 3 of these. Yeah, I could eat 2 or 3.
Maximum you got 5.
Yeah,
in those little boxes.
Because it's not like when you were a kid, you went to the movies and everyone bought a box and you shared your candy. Usually, you're just eating that one box yourself. Like, I mean, to me, the best part about movie candy was Reese's Pieces.
Yeah.
Like, I'm ET all the way, but those Reese's Pieces, when we were kids, that never made it into a Halloween candy bag.
I mean, you may have been in a certain neighborhood where they bought the full-size bags, but I really don't remember them very much.
Yeah.
The Reese's Cups.
If someone gave me a bag of
obviously
Reese's Pieces,
everywhere.
I would have been engaged to see if ET was in the backyard.
Yeah.
Like,
why the hell would you have these? This is so weird to have these on Halloween night.
Yeah.
But yeah.
For me, also, candy that didn't seem like it was very rare, but when you were a kid, like I only ate Almond Joy during Halloween.
Yeah.
As I got older, I acquired a taste for Almond Joy, I think.
Yeah.
But when you were a kid, you would just get a few of those, and that was enough for the year.
Yeah, I think I probably developed my appreciation for Almond Joy, which I will buy occasionally now for fun. From those little samples. So it's like that little fun size, like, just have a little bit, kid.
Yeah.
I think that does work after a while.
Mounds is definitely the Milky Way of the coconut candy.
No.
One has nuts, one doesn't.
Mounds. And the idea that they went with dark chocolate, it's like, not only do you not have like the almond in it, which is appealing.
Yeah.
It's like you made it even less appealing by adding that fake dark chocolate
You
to
almost
it.
should have reversed it, but I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah. I agree. But Mounds wasn't too bad. I would take Mounds over the giant brick Tootsie Roll. I'm going back to Tootsie Rolls. I don't care, because it's like you get the tiny Tootsie Rolls and people give you like 5 of those and they think that they did something for you.
Yeah.
Which basically they just wasted your time is what they did. Then some people would give you the long Tootsie Roll, right? It's still thin. It's the same size. It's just long. It's like 3 of them put
but
together.
almost unedible. Like,
Absolutely. And then some people would give you the brick. What the shit was the brick Tootsie Roll?
that was our first concept of like Costco.
Yeah.
It's like somebody bought a big brick in bulk, and if you cut it up over, maybe you're supposed to cut off little pieces throughout the year.
For Christ's sake, it was like 2.5 inches long and like almost like a square. And I'm just like, dude, I hate the tiny ones. This is a brick of absolute garbage.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No.
And that always pissed me off too, because when I saw that go into my bag, I was like, well, I just wasted a whole trip up these stairs. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, this is garbage. Let's get out of here. Okay.
One thing people used to do, at least I feel like when I was a kid, you would every once in a while, like, what was that? Fruit stripe?
Fruit stripe gum?
Fruit stripe gum.
Yeah.
What people would do, and I think it was because it was just such an aesthetically pleasing gum, it was like people would throw in just one stick.
Yeah.
So it's like someone bought a pack and then they just took all the individual, and like every once in a while you'd get one of those. Like I remember that was the first time I think I had that gum was in a Halloween bag.
Sometimes people would do that too. I think they would tape the gum to some sort of like Halloween message.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Like a Hubba Bubba or like.
Yeah. Because like another thing on my list, like we'll go, like obviously there's like 1,000 types of suckers. We won't go through all of them. But like I love seeing blow pops, love seeing dum dums.
Blow pops and dum dums.
The occasional ring pop, which is crazy.
It's
like when you got a little older,
that was the
you would actually get
trifecta.
a ring pop. Holy crap.
Or maybe a Jolly Rancher.
Yeah.
But then you didn't want. You're like, no whammies. Don't give me. Don't give me a Tootsie Pop.
Don't give me a brown Tootsie Pop.
Oh, especially the brown Tootsie Pop.
Christ.
Oh.
You just throw that in a bush the moment you get it.
They were just so wrong because like you could eat them and you might not turn them down. Like that might be the last thing in your bag that you got around to. And
the show is not sponsored by Tootsie Rolls, clearly.
But it's like as you're eating it, it already tastes like there's gonna be some mystery caramel chocolate in the middle.
Yeah.
And at no point do either of those two go together. And it just reminds you.
Well, and it's like you're, my favorite one was probably the blue one, if you were going to have one.
For me, the red one.
Yeah.
Because again, you still ate it. That's why the company's existed for so long. It's not horrible. It's just if you're going for that or you're eating the blow pops first.
Yeah. Right. Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh. There's no question about it.
Even though by the time you got to the gum, it was just this powdery crumble mess of.
But it still tasted like the gum you could get in baseball cards. So it's like, that's great.
I'm sorry. Usually I come to okay. Sorry.
Tootsie Rolls or Tootsie Pops. I'm sorry. The problem is let's say you're having the blue one, and then you're like, oh, this is good. This is blue flavor, whatever this blue flavor is. And then it's like, and then all of a sudden you hit this like false chocolate flavor. It's like, whoever thought those two were going to fuse into a good experience?
It's like if you were trying to simultaneously, you're chewing gum and you decided, I'm going to take the gum out of my mouth for a second. I'm going to eat a caramel and then I'll go back to my gum.
Yeah.
Like just doesn't work.
A choco molasses sensation. And also, we all were obsessed when we were young with like those rappers and the Indian shooting the star. And we all
Native American shooting the star, please.
Well, he was actually a white child in a headdress, so he was dressed like a Native American. all appropriation. And he was shooting at this star, and everyone thought it meant that like you could go to a store.
Oh yeah, and get a free
and like get a free one, and that was never the case. That's not a thing.
No store was participating in that.
That's never happened a thing in our lives,
How
which
that
makes
even-
them even worse now. Somehow,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a whole nother show. Like figuring out how that got pushed into the zeitgeist of our childhood.
And you remember, there was no social media. There was no, somehow just from town to town, everybody.
Yeah,
It just spread. And
just
how?
absolutely. So when I was a kid, and I'm sure this happened to everyone, because I was watching It's a Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and somebody in there, the kids go up to the door, they come back and they go, I got a chocolate bar and I got a piece of gum. And this
I
one
got a
girl goes,
rock.
I got, yes. And it's funny because when you watch that, you can actually see the rock go into his bag.
Yeah.
It's like some jackass is actually throwing rocks. But
Which the rock is probably just the big brick of Tootsie Roll.
yeah. His Tootsie Rolls melted
Yeah.
next to the fireplace.
But they didn't want to get sued, so they
chucked it
just
there.
called it a rock.
But yeah, this one girl goes, I got a quarter. And I was like, yeah, every so often you would get a quarter. I remember this lady in the neighborhood that we were by, she would tape a dime to the back of a Chick tract. So she would try to trick you into reading a little Jesus story, a little Bible story.
Yeah.
For the price of a dime.
I would usually just throw 2 cents back at her and just keep walking.
Do you remember getting
No,
a
I do.
significant amount of money?
I was going to bring up to you that I do remember getting you get little church cards or little things that had, holy affirmations. And then on the back would either be money or candy or,
Yeah, that's how they get you.
It's just sort of.
Yeah, usually same thing with, I think like a Jolly Rancher, like you usually stick that to the back of some small religious pamphlet.
Yeah.
Rarely would you just get the pamphlet as the candy. I think that
You didn't want to get your house TP'd.
yeah, that's why they built the trick into the trick or treat.
Exactly.
Because you don't. I'm not just here for paper, lady. Unless it's a coupon. Unless it's a coupon for McDonald's.
Yeah.
Right.
I was like, if you're just getting loose change, like that's like some drunk divorced dad who's just giving you change from the change jar. Like, get out of here, kids. Like,
I forgot to buy candy. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
That is one of the other things that's not candy that was still really good to get. I didn't get very many of them, but the McDonald's coupon that came out, I don't know when exactly, early 80s. They were definitely doing commercials on it by 84, 85, I think. And those were cool to get. I somebody better than me said it once when they were like, oh, the great thing about getting the McDonald's coupon is like, it's a promise that you get to go to McDonald's.
Yeah, because usually what it would be, at least my memory, is usually it would be like a free ice cream cone.
Yeah.
Which then got you there to have your parents buy you a Happy Meal.
Yeah, you're like, I'm already here.
I'm not just going there for an ice cream
and so that
cone.
was kind of cool.
But it is kind of cool because like sometimes you'd go through the drive-thru and like you'd have it like it's like your first like, this is my money. Because that's the thing too, McDonald's, when you were a kid, you would either go get an ice cream cone or I think you also got the box of cookies.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
After this, Matt told Andy a story about a popular girl being nice to him at a middle school party, but he cut it out. Ha ha ha. Wonder if she was dressed as Mother Teresa, it would explain the charity work.
You touched on candy that you would really only interact with on Halloween. And I had the same thought. We both had this similar thought. And did you have like kind of you already said a couple. Do you have a couple more candies that like they'd be in your bag or your pillowcase and you'd eat them and you were fine with having them, but it's like the rest of the year they were just out of your brain. You didn't think about them.
Yeah. Like for me, for me that was probably like definitely like a Milky Way or a Musketeer. Definitely like I wasn't like a Starburst. If Starburst showed up in my bag, I would pick through like the pink and the red. Or later on when they like had more kind of tropical flavors.
Yeah.
But I would only eat them at Halloween. I had really no use for them the rest of the year.
You wouldn't have bought them on your own at all.
Yeah.
See, and I had that same thing with the $100,000 bar, because it wasn't called the $100,000 bar yet. But even then when it changed over, it's like you could get those bars anytime you wanted. It wasn't a Halloween thing. But I only ate them at Halloween time. I never thought of them the rest of the year.
Yeah. I was probably that way with like Payday or Baby
Oh, yeah,
Ruth.
Paydays too, which is weird because nowadays I actually like Payday. I actually enjoy it. But then
When you're a kid, you're like, where's the chocolate?
which I think didn't they make a Payday
The Baby
chocolate?
Ruth was
they made the Payday. Yeah, it's like if you got a Baby Ruth, it's like basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So I remember also it was the only time of year that I would eat Hershey's cookies and cream.
Oh, I hated those.
Those little white
Yeah.
Hershey bars.
You always got so many of those. I was like,
Yeah, you got more than you would expect.
yeah.
Because you have plenty of regular Hershey's. And then you'd also have the Mr. Good bar, right?
Yeah, the Mr. Good bar, that was definitely for me. That was one of those things when I was a kid, I only got that around Halloween.
Yeah.
Like that was one of those things. It's one of those, it's actually weird. I love those during Halloween, and I don't know why I didn't buy them the rest of the year.
I know it's a weird thing because it's like they kind of have all the appeal of like a Crunch bar.
Yeah.
But then they also have that peanut thrown in, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually surprised that it took me so long to appreciate the Mr. Good bar.
Because I almost like it better than a Nestle Crunch bar. But a Nestle Crunch bar was a lot easier to buy when you're like, that is something you might buy when you were a kid.
Yeah, and it said Crunch on it. And
Yeah.
like you tried to like
It had such a good colorway. Like, it's graphically, it just called out to you better than the
big bright yellow Mr. Good bar.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're going to reach for a Mr. Good bar, you just decided to go for the Hershey and almond instead.
Yeah. It's too many options. But I appreciate him. I'm glad he was there for us in our time of Halloween need. But also one that I had to sort of be reminded of, but totally was there, were Mallow cups.
Oh.
And so I don't know if you said that you'd never really had a Mallow cup.
I had seen them. I had seen the package. I had no idea what they were.
Yeah.
You might want to explain to it because I think a lot of people are in that boat.
So Mallow cups are basically if you have a Reese's peanut butter cup, but it's like thicker, like it's taller, but it's filled with marshmallow, just like you probably thought it was. And you can get them all year. They didn't just come out for Halloween, but you just never thought of them. They're from a candy company that is a little bit mid-tier to lower tier. They do not have the circulation of Reese's or M&M Mars or anything like that. And so this is like the time of year when they would really shine. And they were good. I'm not saying they weren't a good candy. I just never thought about them because they're just not top of mind. They're not even top of shelf.
Yeah, and in your candy bag, if you got, because back in the day it wasn't a mini buttercup, it was like a full size buttercup.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Oh yeah, it was the cup.
If
it was the full cup.
If you got that, you were like, oh, this is awesome. Like,
Yeah.
And so the other one, you're like, what is this?
What are you? Why are you Mallow? What does this mean? But yeah, and there's so many others I'm sure we could name.
You know who missed the boat?
What?
So of the mini candy bars, of the snack size candy bar, if that's going to be the first time you taste this candy bar,
Yeah.
and then decide if you're going to want it or not later on, that candy bar, whatchamacallit?
Oh,
Or what you...
it's a whatchamacallit, but I love what you said just then because they should change it for Halloween to be a whatchamacallit.
Whatchamacallit.
That's awesome.
Whatchamacallit. That should have been a mini bar because I feel like a lot of kids back in the 80s, you would always see it on the shelf, but you're working with your allowance, so you don't have a lot of money there. And you're usually going to your standards, or you're getting a Garbage Pail Kids, or you're going for like, Lemon Heads and Alexander the Grape. So it's like, had I tasted whatchamacallit, like had they made a mini one and I tasted that, I would have been more inclined to buy it later on.
Nobody steal that from us. We now own whatchamacallit.
They should really do a Halloween whatchamacallit. That should be their first mini. They still have time to get into this candy market.
Oh, that would be so dope. Oh my gosh. Okay. Now that sounds amazing.
And it could be, yeah.
Oh, see, and they have that, like I said, they have that sequel candy bar called Who's a What's It. They can make a Boo's a What's It.
There you go.
Oh, man.
That could be green or white, yeah.
Oh God. Okay. All right. We gotta, find
in
pen and paper. We've got to write
in
somebody.
a decade where we're losing more and more
Yeah.
candy to time, they could actually start adding some more.
Add value.
Add a little
to our
bit more to
Halloween.
the yeah.
But yeah, no, I love to watch whatchamacallit. I still do. And yes, they would have benefited from a miniature version of that.
But do you remember
It would have
eating
been
that
really
as a
cool.
kid or not till you were a little older?
No, not till I was a little older.
Yeah.
They always had awesome commercials. Anybody listening to this, go back. And it's not just the whatever it is, whatever it was, chocolatey chocolate, whatchamacallit. They had other ones that were also really good. Like that brand, for some reason, because of its silly name, like lended itself to like kind of expressing itself in its own way.
And when I was a kid, my parents would always use that term, like, hand me the whatchamacallit or the whatchamacallit. And so since I heard that, whenever I saw the candy bar, I was curious. I just wasn't ready to like step in and test.
I'm also, I'm wondering because you just use that term, you know, your parents would say, that's a whatchamacallit. Right?
Yeah.
It's almost like I wonder if it got branded with like being an older people's thing.
Yeah.
It's an older people's bar because it's got that weird older people's, phrase for a name.
They're like, they really don't know what it is. Like it's not a caramel bar. It's not a Nugent. It's not a, who knows? Yeah.
A Nugent. It's not a Ted Nugent. Oh, I love a Snickers filled with Ted Nugent. So how late would you get in? How late could you stay out?
So, like, I would usually stay out pretty late when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, but I had, it depended actually. Like when I was a little kid, when I was younger, if my dad was home for cruise,
Yeah.
we were probably in like on the earlier side.
Okay.
If my dad was on cruise and it was one of those years where, the dads aren't around, like we'd stay out like a lot later.
You're chasing the
Yeah.
dragon.
And then once my parents got divorced, no one cared when I was coming home.
No one cared about you.
I mean, that's not true. Like, but
You just left a window open and you crawled
you
in.
could just go
whenever
out
you
later.
felt
You
like.
could just go out later and later, and everyone just felt. I mean, it was the 80s
Yeah.
and 90s. Like your parents just didn't seem to care.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because I've seen multiple videos talking about what Halloween was like in the 80s and what we've lost and everything. And I'm not saying we didn't lose certain things, but one thing that kept coming up over and over again was that Halloween like went later. And I honestly can't say that I remember that. Like everyone thinks that the standard now, and I don't disagree because this is what we do. It's like 6 to 8 is like the time.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't really remember the time when we were a kid, but I don't remember it being like 9:30 and people still being up. Like
No.
6 to 8 seem pretty reasonable.
Yeah,
Maybe
so-
5:30 to 8.
No, I mean, I think 6 to 8. I think as I got older, it's houses were not happy. A lot of houses after 8 o'clock they were done.
Yeah, a lot of
You
people
know,
were turning off lights.
turning off
Maybe
lights.
8:30 if you were pushing it.
Yeah. But and then you would just stay out with your friends a little bit later.
I agree.
But
yeah.
being a Northwest kid, it also depended if it rained that night or not. If
Yeah.
it rained, you were back pretty early.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a distinction between how late, like if you were a little kid, the houses closed and you were done and you went home. If you were like, 12, 13, maybe if you were pushing it to 14, you did stay out.
Yeah.
You just were not knocking anymore.
Yeah, like you would either just sort of walk around because you could and just goof off or throw apples.
Because you got to stay out late.
Yeah.
It's like that one expected late time.
Or you just hang out. I mean, for when I was a kid on Navy bases, like because we could stay out a little bit later, we'd always just congregate on each other's like porch and then just trade candy before,
yeah.
like people would just sort of trade some candy before
Sure.
you went home and then have your parents. Because here's the other thing we didn't talk about. And it happened, I mean, a lot when I was younger. You'd come home and then your parents would quickly take your candy.
Yeah.
And then just allot what you got to take and kind of hold some back.
Well, and that's the one thing that I actually never came across with my parents is they never really gave a crap about our candy. Like, I'm not going to lie, they were not, which is funny because they were very worrisome people.
Yeah.
But I don't remember them ever going over my candy, with a furrowed brow going, we got to make sure this is all good.
No, so my
Are
parents...
you, are you talking about
My
literally
parent-
like, don't eat
yeah,
this?
Yeah, so my parents, like my mom, like, so my parents, they weren't really concerned that there was like razor blades, poison, or drugs in my candy.
All
They
these
didn't-
things have been
they-
confirmed to be false. Anyway.
Yeah, that was some Reagan era propaganda, like whatever. But I mean, my mom didn't care as much, so if my dad was on cruise, it wasn't as big of a deal. But if my dad was home, he would usually take our candy, and then he would let us take a little bit to our room that night, and then he'd put the rest of it away, and then we could like kind of earn it back throughout the week.
Yeah.
You know, but
okay.
I don't know. That might have just been a military mentality. I don't know.
We didn't really have to do that. I think there probably were like limits about how much we were expected to eat that night as far as like, you know, like I just don't remember wanting to eat all my candy that night anyway. I wanted to save it.
Yeah. More than anything, and probably like you, we like to just dump the bag out on the kitchen table and then just start putting it into its categories.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love categorizing and counting.
Tell us I'm sure you got a good.
Yeah, no, that's what I used to do that I really enjoyed that is like you would dump it out. Usually we would do it on our floor and it would be me and my sister. And then we just start sorting. And so it'd be like, I'd literally sort by thing. So it's like Snickers, right? And then you go Three Musketeer, these Smarties, and then your Tootsie Rolls that you're going to throw in the garbage later.
Yeah.
You know, and then
the Milky Ways you hope you could trade off to somebody.
Yeah. And it was like, I didn't care about the overall count. That didn't matter to me, but I liked seeing what I had in its bulk form to know what I should be eating first. So it's like, if I had a big surplus of Snickers, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start on that.
Yeah.
Because I only have like, 3, packs of M&Ms. Like I'm not going to eat those now because they'll be gone. Like, so I had to start with the bulk and work my way down.
And I don't usually eat Butterfingers, but I'll allow it this time. Yeah.
And then there was a little amount of trading. Me and my sister didn't trade too much. I think because we both kind of like the same things. So, there would be a little bit of bartering, which is always fun.
Yeah.
It's a cornerstone of Halloween is especially with your friends, yes, but especially with your siblings, sort of doing that back and forth.
You'd always start with your friend. At least for me, I'd always start with my friends.
Yeah.
And then once you came home, it was me and my brother. And I would overwhelmingly give him, here's all this sour candy for just a little bit of chocolate in return. Yeah. But it has to be the Snickers or...
Yeah, and I love that part. That's a true ritual, I think, is especially the dumping out and the sorting, or at least counting.
Yeah.
But then also the trading. I think those things all kind of need to have a succession. Yeah. And then you have a real tradition on your hands.
And then you're like, let me ration this chocolate out until the day after Thanksgiving. Then I know I'm gonna get kisses.
Then you'd start with that's when you get your scheduling book out and you go, I'm gonna have 4 pieces here and 7 pieces here. Take 2 to school with me. Absolutely.
Maybe 4 in case the bully's taking some. Let me have a buffer now.
Make sure you have false candy that you don't like.
Yeah.
So they beat you up and take that, and then you have your real candy.
Don't beat up that kid. He only brings hard candy to school.
This kid only has he only brings tiny boxes of like hot tamales and atomic fireballs.
I always hated I always hated you'd get this big pile of like the butterscotch.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I would eat all the Jolly Ranchers first. Then when I finally ran out of stuff and I got to the butterscotch, it's not so bad.
Would that happen every year?
Every year
you'd hate
every
it. And
year.
Then you go,
because you would overwhelmingly of the hard candies, you'd overwhelmingly have all these I would even get to because my grandparents didn't do this, but some older people would always have that. It looked like a little strawberry.
Yeah.
And then you open it up and you're like, it's a really good hard candy. But then once you got to that,
there's a gooey center.
The gooey center was this. You always were it was almost like you were playing roulette with it.
Yeah.
You would try to see how close you could get to it without unleashing it.
Yeah.
And you should always throw it away sooner than you do, but you want to try to get a little bit more out of it. And if you didn't time it right, all that goo.
Yeah.
And it was just really bad medicine or something.
Yeah. They only sold those, I think, on an end cap next to a pharmacy.
So I guess when I was a kid, I never saw them for sale.
Yeah.
You would either get them every once in a while at maybe a dentist or doctor's office. But it was visiting, if I visited old aunts and uncles, or if you went to other people's,
Absolutely.
they would have them out in trays. My grandparents did not have them out in trays. They were
oh man, that's gross.
Yeah.
Well, Halloween's over. We've sorted our candy. We've taken off our costumes. We're washing off our pirates makeup.
Brushing our teeth before bed.
Yep. And we are going to go to sleep, and we're going to tell our friends all the fun we had the night before. And, you know, everyone's going to have their story bragging about the big thing they got. You know, I got a full-size Hershey's bar, or, hey, we went to this house that was giving out concert tickets, or whatever nonsense. You guys always do that. Always have the big stories the next day.
Or like the next day, or probably usually maybe the lead up to it, everyone's playing Bloody Mary. Or usually it was the girls always playing Bloody Mary in the bathroom.
Sure. Oh, nice.
And they'd all come out screaming.
Yeah.
It's just that time of year.
Oh, God. Yes. Memory unlocked for that shit, too. Yeah. I remember that. You know, some light as a feather, stiff as a board games. Oh, man.
Or your first Ouija board brought to you by Mattel.
Oof, yeah. Now, you know, I'll say this, to this day, I never got into that. Even if I was at like a high school party or something and somebody brought that out and they went upstairs and played, I was like, you know what? I don't necessarily believe in it, but like today's not the day to find out I'm wrong.
You're like, you know what?
You know what I mean?
We're not letting the juice is not loose today. Like I don't know what's going to happen up there, but I'm not. Yeah.
Man, thank you so much for sitting down and remembering what a fun time Halloween used to be. And I don't say that saying that Halloween is not fun now. It is still very fun for me.
If we don't have as many candy options as we used to, the costume options are off the hook right now.
Oh, they're crazy wild. And I guess this isn't an episode where you're supposed to like learn something or walk away with some knowledge. But I guess if I did have something to say from the bottom of my heart, I would say do whatever you can to uphold a tradition for Halloween for as long as you can. Kind of like Andy was talking about, you know, like being okay with like making your own costume. I think that definitely needs to come back. The Halloween of the 80s, you know, or late 70s, even into the 90s, I think it was a nice time. I think it was a caring time. Because I think at the end of the day, the reason I like Halloween more than Christmas right now or Thanksgiving or any other holiday, like, you know, 4th of July is okay, is that it truly is the one time of a year that you go out and you meet your neighbors.
Yeah.
It's a community holiday at its core. And I want future Halloweens here in America to get back to that feeling. We go to a Halloween carnival that my daughter's school puts on. And, you know, it's low cost and there aren't many decorations. But what I like about it is I'm looking around at other people that I recognize from her school. You know, I'm seeing parents and I'm like, oh, that's X's dad and that's Y's mom, you know, and I'm talking to them and I even talk to their kids. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? And it's like, there's no better sense of community than when you're in an environment like that. And Halloween is what's bringing it together.
Here is a beautiful Halloween remembrance from our friend and superfan Alison. Halloween has been a love that was ingrained at birth. My parents met at a Halloween party in 1985. They then got married 6 years later to the day, and my mother found out she was pregnant with me on Halloween 1995. Trying to isolate one memory is difficult, but the best way I can describe trick-or-treating growing up was the feeling. Every year my dad took my brother and me. We would walk miles, and I mean miles. Today I hear of kids taking one trip down the street to 3 or 4 houses and being done. I can't fathom the horror. Until every porch light was off, we would not stop. We would make multiple trips back to the house to dump and refill the classic jack-o'-lantern buckets. My mum would stay back and pass out candy on the perfectly decorated porch, draped with corn stalks and pumpkins. We had a neighbour that did a haunted house every year and passed out popcorn balls. She had a signature witch cackle that would be heard for blocks as you exited. We lived so close to our grandparents we would stop at their houses to spend time that night with them, and of course getting the grandchildren serving of candy. I can think of so many stories, houses and costumes. It's the smell of Yankee Candle Spice pumpkin and my mum in her full leaf cardigan. It's eating hot dogs wrapped in crescent rolls with mummy mustard eyes as fast as possible to get the final touches on your costume before the marathon begins. As adults, we still capture those memories and feelings, but in a different way. Now it's the annual Lost Boys movie night with Chinese food next to the Halloween tree. Yes, my mum and I both have trees just for Halloween. Halloween brings a nostalgic comfort that does not quite compare to anything else. I will forever chase the feeling of what it was as a child.
Thank you, everyone, for coming down to the shelter tonight for our spooky Halloween first annual Tales from the Candy Bowl. Ooh. Also, there'll be a little lightning right here if I did this right. We appreciate anybody who submitted stories. I hope to make this an annual tradition on top of doing other little Halloween episodes and mini-sodes, and just kind of grow on this.
Let's do little shout outs. I want to do a shout out to my friend Darcy. Welcome back to Oregon. She loves Halloween, and we just spent the weekend carving pumpkins.
Yes, I want to do a shout out to Stephen and also my friend Allison, two people who submitted great stories, and we couldn't do the show without you.
And shout out to my brother. He had a great story. Same with Sarah Miller. She's a sister to me. So thanks, everyone. Just keep showing us the love, and we will keep trying to do an episode under 2 hours.
Yeah. Check us out on Instagram at shelter.from.oblivion. And also you can check us out on Facebook. Also, I believe it's shelter.from.oblivion. Email us, DM us whenever you want, and we'll try to respond to you in our next show. It would be awesome to kind of get this community rolling and, have kind of an interactive audience that can share in the show with us.
If you don't have Facebook or Instagram, maybe we'll come out with a zine soon, and we can just send you some snail mail.
That'd be awesome. Okay, well, have a fun and scary, but safe, but terrifying Halloween.
Leave the raisins for another day.
Well, happy Halloween, you ghouls and goblins. The scariest thing for me tonight was watching Matt stuff 7 fun-sized Three Musketeers in his mouth before the show. Nightmare fuel. I'm dressed as the Taco Bell app, by the way. Thanks for asking. Good night.